11:20 p.m. You're lying in bed at 2 a.m., phone glowing in the dark, and you refresh your savings account one more time. $50,217. You've been checking compulsively for 3 days ever since you crossed that number. You open Zillow, something you've done 1,000 times before, but tonight feels different. You're not browsing anymore, you're calculating, you're measuring, you're planning, and that shift from daydreaming to strategizing happened the moment you hit five figures with a five in front. You know exactly what I'm talking about if you've experienced this threshold. Suddenly, your parents are calling realtors just to chat. Your inbox fills with pre-approval offers you didn't request. That house hunting Instagram account you started ironically? You're watching it earnestly now, taking screenshots, making spreadsheets. The psychological gravity of homeownership pulled you into its orbit, and you didn't even realize when you crossed the event horizon. Today, I'm calculating exactly what that $50,000 unlocks, what it doesn't, and why this specific threshold transforms you from renter to buyer in everyone's eyes, including your own, even though mathematically you're still months or years from closing. We're reverse engineering the income you need to sustain this, breaking down the complete monthly reality, and documenting what changes in your psychology, your options, and your timeline the moment you cross this line. Something invisible shifted when you hit that number. Realtors who ignored your emails 6 months ago are now returning calls within an hour. Lenders who never responded suddenly have pre-approval letters drafted. Even your own behavior changed. You're not entertaining yourself with Zillow anymore. You're researching neighborhoods, calculating commute times, measuring furniture against floor plans you screenshot. The app knows it too. Your algorithm shifted from showing you aspirational, million-dollar homes to showing you what you can actually afford, and that algorithmic acknowledgement feels like permission. But here's what nobody explains about this threshold. You've reached a number that sounds like enough but functions like almost enough. Let me show you the three-bucket reality that reveals why $50,000 is simultaneously substantial and insufficient. Bucket 1 is your down payment. On a $350,000 house, that median price in many markets right now, your $50,000 represents 14% down. That's enough to avoid PMI with some lenders, not enough with others. Depends on your credit score and the phase of the moon, apparently. On a $400,000 house, you're at 12.5%. Still PMI territory. On a $250,000 house, you hit that magical 20%, but now you have $0 remaining. Bucket 2 is closing costs. This is where people get shocked. You need 3 to 5% of the purchase price just to close. On that $350,000 house, that's $10,000 to $17,000. On the $400,000 house, it's $12,000 to $20,000. These costs are not optional. They are not negotiable in any meaningful way. Title insurance, origination fees, appraisal, inspection, escrow setup, property taxes prorated, homeowner's insurance first year. The money evaporates before you get the keys. Bucket 3 is your emergency fund. You need 3 to 6 months of expenses in cash after closing, not 3 to 6 months of your old rent. 3 to 6 months of your new total cost of ownership, which we're about to calculate. If your monthly cost of ownership is $3,000, that's $9,000 to $18,000, sitting in savings doing nothing but protecting you from the inevitable moment when something breaks. Here's the brutal math. For a $300,000 house, you need $60,000 down payment at 20%, plus $12,000 in closing costs at 4%, plus $15,000 emergency fund at $5,000 per month for 3 months. That's $87,000 total needed to buy safely. Your $50,000 gets you 57% of the way there. You've crossed into serious buyer territory without crossing into financially protected buyer territory. And that gap is where the industry lives. Let me show you why everyone suddenly treats you differently once you hit this number. With $50,000 verified in your bank account, you've demonstrated savings discipline that predicts mortgage payment reliability. This is what lenders actually care about. Default risk drops significantly once someone proves they can accumulate five figures. Realtors see commission probability rise substantially. You've self-selected out of the just browsing category into the statistically likely to close within 6 months category. The changes are specific and calculated. Pre-approval letters arrive because banks data mine account thresholds and trigger marketing workflows when you cross $50,000. Realtors prioritize your showing requests because you're statistically 6 times more likely to close than someone with $15,000 saved. Even sellers' agents take your offers seriously because that down payment number signals commitment and financial capability. But here's what they don't tell you. You're being treated like a ready buyer because you're almost ready. And that gap between almost and actually is where mistakes happen. The industry profits from momentum, from getting you from $50,000 to closing before you've fully calculated the monthly reality or built the proper safety net. You've crossed the threshold where everyone's incentive is to push you forward rather than pause you. Every person in your transaction makes money when you buy at your maximum qualification, not at your comfortable sustainability point. Your lender profits from loan origination regardless of whether you'll struggle with payments in year 2. Your realtor earns commission as a percentage of sale price, so showing you that $375,000 house instead of the $275,000 house means thousands more for them. The mortgage insurance company profits specifically from your sub 20% down payment. The title company, the appraiser, the inspector, they all get paid when you close. Nobody makes money when you say not yet. Watch what happens when we reverse engineer the actual income requirement to safely afford what your $50,000 unlocks. Let's use a real scenario that exists in dozens of markets right now. Target house is $325,000. That's a realistic starter. Home in many places. Not coastal California, not New York, but the places where most people actually buy their first house. You put down 15% to avoid PMI with a strong credit score. That's $48,750. Closing costs at 3.5% typical are $11,375. You spend $5,000 on immediate repairs and furniture because the place needs paint, and you need window coverings, and your current furniture doesn't fit the space. Your emergency fund remaining after all this is $0. Now let's build the monthly cost. Your mortgage principal and interest at 7% is $1,845. Property tax in most markets on a $325,000 house runs around $4,000 annually. That's $333 monthly. Homeowner's insurance is $185. HOA, if applicable, is $150, and half of these starter homes have one. Utilities run higher than renting because you're heating and cooling more space and you're responsible for water and trash now. That's $250. Maintenance reserve at 1% of home value annually is $270 monthly. Your total monthly cost is $3,033. Now, let's reverse engineer what household income you need to afford this safely. Lenders use the 28% front-end ratio. Your housing costs should not exceed 28% of your gross monthly income. $3,033 divided by 0.28 equals $10,832 monthly gross income. That's $130,000 annual household income required. But wait, you also have student loans at $350 monthly. Car payment is $425 monthly. Minimum credit card payments are $150 monthly. Your total debt obligations are $925 monthly. Lenders also use the back-end ratio. Your total debts, including housing, should not exceed 36% of your gross monthly income. $3,033 plus $925 equals $3,958 total monthly debt. Divided by 0.36 equals $10,994 monthly gross income required. That's $132,000 annual household income. Look at that number. Really look at it. Your $50,000 down payment requires $130,000 plus in household income to sustain safely. The down payment and the monthly payment are separate qualification bars, and passing one doesn't guarantee passing the other. This is the disconnect nobody explains. You save the lump sum, but can you afford the monthly life? Because qualified and comfortable are not the same word, and the industry uses them interchangeably, hoping you won't notice. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Meet Sarah and James. Sarah's a teacher making $58,000. James does IT support making $67,000. Combined household income is $125,000. They hit $52,000 saved after 4 years of aggressive budgeting. Meal planning every Sunday? No vacations except visiting family. One car between them for 18 months. They did everything right. They felt ready. Everyone told them they were ready. The lender pre-approved them for $380,000. The realtor showed them townhouses in that range. Their parents said, "This is how you build wealth. Stop paying someone else's mortgage." So they bought a $15,000 townhouse with $47,000 down at 15%. Here's their actual monthly reality after purchase. Combined take-home after taxes, health insurance, and minimal 401k contributions is $7,850. Their mortgage payment is $1,790. Property tax is $315. Insurance is $165. HOA is $225. Utilities are $280. Maintenance fund is $265. Housing total is $3,040. They have $4,810 remaining for everything else. Every single other thing in their lives. Now let me show you what that actually feels like day to day. It feels like stopping their 401k contributions completely after closing, because they needed that extra $300 monthly to make the math work. Future retirement is invisible today, so it gets sacrificed first. It feels like their emergency fund sitting at $2,100, which means one major repair destroys their financial stability completely. It feels like date nights going from twice monthly to once every 6 weeks, because $80 for dinner and a movie is now a budget strain. It feels like still driving a 2008 Civic with 167,000 miles. Because car replacement isn't mathematically possible in any timeline they can see. It feels like the HVAC needing an $800 repair at month 3, and that expense going on a credit card because their emergency fund can't take the hit without dropping below $1,000. It feels like Sarah being pregnant now and childcare costs not appearing in this budget anywhere because there's no room for them to fit. It feels like James taking on freelance IT work on weekends to build breathing room they don't currently have. They're not failing. Their $3,040 housing cost on $125,000 income is technically affordable at 29% of gross income. The lender approved them. The math checked out on paper. But the lived experience is financial fragility masquerading as homeownership success. They crossed the $50,000 threshold, bought at their qualified maximum, and discovered that affordable means technically possible, not comfortably sustainable. The psychological transformation from renter to buyer happened. The financial transformation to security didn't follow. Now let's talk about why $50,000 specifically triggers this transformation. It's the first round number that sounds like down payment money rather than emergency fund or car savings. It's cultural memory made numerical. Your parents' generation bought houses with $12,000 down in 1987, and while inflation has made that roughly $50,000 today, the number lodged in our collective consciousness as what you need. We inherit these thresholds without updating them for current market reality. Here's the psychological trap that gets people at exactly this moment. Once you've saved this much for a house, it becomes harder to use it for anything else. That $50,000 isn't fungible anymore in your mind. It's house money, which means you've psychologically committed to buying before you've mathematically verified you should. The threshold creates momentum that overrides analysis. You've worked so hard to reach it that walking away feels like failure, even if walking away is the financially protective choice. You've been telling people for 2 years that you're saving for a house. You've skipped trips and dinners and purchases. You've watched friends buy homes while you waited. And now you're finally here. At the number, and the idea of saying not yet feels like admitting defeat. The system knows this. The pre-approvals arrive exactly when you cross this number, because banks know the psychology shifts here. You're vulnerable to momentum. You're ready to believe you're ready. And that gap between wanting to be ready and actually being ready is where the profit lives. So here's the warning nobody in the industry will give you. If your household income is below $120,000 and you've just hit $50,000 saved, you're not ready for median priced markets. You're ready to keep saving. The math doesn't care about momentum. The math doesn't care about how hard you work to get here. The math doesn't care that you're tired of waiting. You need either more income or more savings before the monthly reality becomes sustainable rather than fragile. This is the intervention. The lender will approve you. The realtor will encourage you. Your parents will validate you. I'm telling you to pause. Let me show you. What happens if you don't? Month 1 and 2, you're managing, but it's tight. You're adjusting to the new budget. You tell yourself this is temporary, you'll get used to it. Month 4, your car needs a $900 repair. You drain most of your emergency fund. Month 7, the water heater fails. $2,200 for replacement. It goes on a credit card because your emergency fund never recovered from the car repair. Month 9, someone loses work hours or faces a medical expense or needs to help family. Your income stability, which the whole structure depends on, disrupts. By month 12, you're carrying $4,000 in credit card debt from house-related emergencies. Your emergency fund is under $1,000, and you're one job loss or major repair from genuine crisis. This is the pattern. This is what happens when you buy at the edge of affordability instead of well within it. But let me give you permission to do something radical. You can choose not to play this game right now. Here's what else your $50,000 enables. You can use that $50,000 as proof you can save, then keep going to $75,000 or $100,000. That moves you from almost ready to actually protected. You can buy a house 25 to 30% cheaper than you're approved for. That $380,000 approval? Look at $285,000 houses. Your monthly cost drops by $600, which becomes your emergency fund, your retirement contributions, your breathing room. You can move to a genuinely affordable market rather than stretching in an expensive one. There are metro areas where $50,000 is 20% down on a $250,000 median home, and household incomes of $90,000 are comfortable. Relocating isn't failure, it's strategic optimization. You can invest that $50,000 and continue renting if the monthly comparison favors it. Run the actual math. Rent plus investment returns versus own plus opportunity cost. Sometimes renting and investing wins, and that's not throwing money away, that's maximizing wealth. You can use the $50,000 as proof of discipline and keep building wealth outside homeownership entirely. This is valid. This is strategic. This is intelligent. The cultural narrative that homeownership equals wealth, building only works if you can afford to maintain the asset without sacrificing every other wealth building tool. You're not losing anything by waiting. You're gaining clarity, optionality, and financial protection. The $50,000 threshold means you're a serious buyer. It doesn't mean you're a protected buyer. That distinction determines whether homeownership builds wealth or creates decades of financial fragility. Let me reframe what just happened to you. You crossed $50,000 because you're disciplined, strategic, and capable. Those are exactly the traits that make homeownership eventually successful. But eventually is the key word. The psychological shift you're feeling is real and worth celebrating. You've moved from impossible to possible, from fantasy to plan. That transformation matters. But possible doesn't mean optimal, and plan doesn't mean execute today. You have permission to sit with this threshold. You have permission to keep saving past it. You have permission to wait until the monthly math is comfortable rather than technically feasible. The industry will tell you you're ready because ready for them means you can close. Ready for you means you can sustain it without financial fragility. The best thing about reaching this threshold isn't that you can buy now. It's that you can choose exactly when you buy. You've proven you can get to $50,000. Now prove you won't let momentum replace mathematics. Prove you won't confuse qualified with comfortable. Prove you understand that the transformation from renter to buyer doesn't require immediate action. It requires eventual readiness. Home ownership done right builds wealth and stability. Home ownership done at the edge of affordability builds stress and fragility. You get to choose which version you experience, but only if you're willing to wait for the math to support the dream. That discipline, that willingness to pause when everyone's pushing you forward, that's the real financial power. Not the ability to buy now, but the wisdom to buy